Hello and welcome to this edition of the Airport News Show, a half-hour informational program about the Jacksonville Aviation Authority. I'm Debbie Jones, Community Relations Administrator. On today's program, we're talking about the Jacksonville International Airport's Arts Commission, something you may not know about, but it's really doing a wonderful job in enhancing the ambiance at our airports. And so I want to go right to our guest, who is Ms. Jean Ward, who is the chair of the JIA Arts Commission. Welcome, Jean.
Well, thank you. This is fun to be here and talk about the arts. I'm delighted to be invited.
Well, thank you so much. So as background, as kind of a foundation, can you sort of lead us through the process about how the Arts Commission came into being?
Well, probably about 15 years ago, a number of people decided that since our airport was growing into really the Jacksonville International Airport, that maybe we should look at having art in the airport. You know, more people are spending time in airports, and that's kind of it's kind of like the new mall in some ways to people who are traveling. And the idea that people don't have to go to a museum, that they can experience art in many different places, and why not at the airport where you're wandering and looking around. So originally it was a partnership that was started with the city, the airport, and the members of the commission, that they would work together to put in funding. Some initial people like Jay Stein and Preston Haskell put in money to get it started, to start having some pieces in the airport of permanent art that would stay forever, and then changing art, as we have in the Haskell Gallery, to give people the experience of seeing art and appreciating it in a setting in the airport. And so that was kind of the thinking at the beginning, and it's grown wonderfully since then.
It sure has, and later on in the program we'll look at some of those fabulous pieces so we don't let people have something to look forward to. So now, the board, how was the board developed, the Arts Commission board? How is it developed, and how do you find members to serve on that commission? Well,
it was originally developed that a number of people were asked to serve on it. Some were because of their position, head of the Cultural Council, as Bob White is currently, and he is a member of our board. There was someone from the airport. There were people who were artists, as John Bunker is, who's there. There were other people that were community-involved people, volunteers, who were not necessarily artists like myself. And we started this group that would start to look at how to put art in the airport. And it was a process of forming us as a group, really, and deciding how are we going to function, what are we really going to do, and how are we going to do it. And we have occasionally, we are a self-appointing board, so we're a 501c3, you know, nonprofit entity registered with the state. And so we can ask people to join us at any time we'd like. Sometimes the airport has a suggestion. Somebody comes forward and says, to John Clark, well, you know, I'm really interested in the arts, can I be part of the commission? So it's not a particularly formalized thing, but it has gotten to be a group of people who work beautifully together and are all there for the same reasons, to enhance the art in the airport. And so it's kind of evolved over time. And it's in a good place right now.
Do you have term limits? Or
well, we actually,
because it's kind of informal.
We actually don't. We've had people on for a long time. People are, you know, welcome to stay. And without term limits, things actually kind of work out. People are on for a while and move on to other things. Some people stay on for a long time and are really invested in it and contribute to it. Shep Bryant's been on our board for a very long time, and he's a wonderful member and a resource for the commission. So we have people that have been there long enough to really understand the process. You know, art in a public entity as the airport is very different than if you were putting art in an art gallery or in somebody's business. It has a whole different, you know, responsibility to the public, and it's just a different kind of situation.
So with that being the case, how does the Arts Commission, first of all, locate spaces within the airport? And I want to mention just briefly, it's not just Jacksonville International Airport that the Arts Commission has placed art, because we have 3 general aviation airports, and I know that there are some pieces that have been purchased and installed at the other airports. But when you're looking to place art in the airport, what is the Commission's process? How do they go about finding a place to place art, and then deciding on it?
Well, that's the exciting part of doing it. First of all, it's, a collaboration with John Clark and the administration at the airport. If John was not supportive of this and the people there, it wouldn't happen. It would not happen. So I want to make sure that people understand a lot of credit goes to John for getting involved in this kind of thing. We sit down with him as a commission and say to him, what are the areas in the airport that would be available for art? Some of the airport is just because of the structure and security and all is not suited to art. Where are some areas that we could put art? And that's really his call in terms of what is available and what is not being used by advertising. They've been wonderful about giving us some wonderful spaces. So once a space is identified, for example, around the security area where the glass is, and we'll be seeing some slides of that in a few minutes, in that area, glass was going to be put in there. And when we were reviewing with John what was happening there, the glass was there. It was a suggestion of one of our members, one of our board members, that why not get etched glass there and have Jim Draper, who does his wonderful palms, which have become known, the healing palms all over the country actually, into the etched glass. So it worked right into what was being done already with the glass. So the etching only needed to be done. That was kind of something that was already there. The silver rain that you'll see that hangs from the ceiling and does look like when the wind blows it, a little bit of silver rain, was an area that was identified. What we did then, once we know the area and once we have a sense of what the budget for that area is, we work within the budget that the airport gives us. Then we put out a request for proposals. We outline the space, the amount of money we're paying, what is required of it, in terms of materials, what materials would work in certain places that don't work. They have to be able to hold up. Silver rain gets dusted occasionally. That's its only requirement for care. And then we get responses back from artists who are interested in participating. And there's websites where public artists look for jobs like ours at this airport. So there are many airports across the country that have art programs now, and some of them are very sophisticated and some of them are very large. And after we get the proposals back, then we evaluate them as a committee and pick the top, say, 2 or 3. And then we narrow it down to one that we present to the airport board administration who sign off on that particular thing. And it's a collaboration along the way. I mean, it isn't like we spring it on one day and go, well, here is the art for this space. Members of the administration are part of our, commission and serve with us. So if we come up with some wild and crazy idea and somebody from the airport goes, we cannot have things hanging and dangling right there. Then we work that out. There's a lot of creative people on the commission, and creative ideas have to blend with the reality that this is a public space that has, certain rules and limitations related to it. And then we recommend something that we think would fit in that place and go to the board and present it ourselves after we've, talked to John about it. And then the board decides if that is something they would like to go in the airport. Nothing goes in there. We are an advisory body. We do the work of selecting it. But that is probably the most fun part, is having the artists come. We usually get 5 to 6 artists that we narrow it down to come to a presentation to us of their work. And that's where the real expertise of many of the people on our board is so valuable.
Now, because art is art and a great conversation starter.
Oh, yes.
What is it like as a commission trying to decide, narrowing down to 2 or 3, because I imagine for some projects you could get a whole lot of submissions. What is that like going through with your commission members to narrow it down? Do you have your own internal criteria in addition to the criteria of the space of the airport?
Well, once people meet the minimum criteria, then it's a matter of, does it suit us in this particular airport, in this Northern Florida scene? Like we did get in one that we did, somebody who clearly hadn't checked where Jacksonville, Florida was, some sort of Nordic scene with ice and snow. Bad idea. Eliminate that. Some of the things are a matter of, does it fit in with the community? Does it seem to be something, you know, would this community want something very avant-garde and way out there? And what is it that the taste of the community is like? Trying to balance that with pushing the envelope a little bit about something different. We'll see in the second half Hoy S. Hoy, who is our outdoor wonderful sculpture there. That is as you enter the airport. And a piece like that is looking at, we wanted this to represent an international airport. Hoy is an international, it's a conglomeration of a lot of, you know, different cultures and societies in that one piece. And that's what we were looking for, is something that did that. Narrowing it down is very hard. We've had on the last selection, which we'll talk about in the second part, we got probably 80 out of 100 that were wonderful. Wow. And that's hard.
That's got to be tough.
It's much easier to go, oh, there's Eskimos in here, we'll get rid of those. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen as much. And then it becomes a hard choice. And that's where we rely on Martin from the Comer, John Bunker, people who are artists and people who can look at it and say, well, this is how we think it should go and what we should have. So it's quite a deliberative process. We've spent long periods of time doing it, but it's also the most exciting part of it, to select something and then see it up there in the airport, and every time we go in, see that we were part of selecting it. And we feel very honored to be in a position to do that.
Well, and I can say, when we show the pictures and people have been through the airport, it's absolutely beautiful, the pieces that are there, and it does make the airport such a much nicer place to be in, the ambiance. And you mentioned that, just briefly, other airports also have art.
Yes.
Do you know if they operate with the same type of structure of an arts commission and an independent advisory board? Are you aware of how they might structure their
I think there's
process?
all different. I think they're all different models, and that'd be something good to ask Kay Beth, who's our program coordinator. She attends a lot of the meetings in other places and sees what they do. Most of them, I think, do have an advisory board. I mean, the workings of an airport are, you know, very demanding, as you know, as being an employee there, and to have a lot of internal time spent on that is something that I don't think most airports could or would deem to be a really acceptable thing to do. That's why this airport has the commission and has hired a coordinator who handles the programming. So anything at the airport relating to the art program, Kay Beth is the internal person that people can go to ask questions. I have to say that people at this airport have been wonderful in terms of, you know, being welcoming to her and saying this is a wonderful thing and asking questions about it. Because as you say, art stirs up all sorts of things, and some people look at something and go, I love that. Other people go, I'm not so crazy about it. You know. So that's one of the reasons we have our temporary displays in the Haskell Gallery, and we have the kiosks out in the central area where the display works on a short time basis for a number of months that are not permanent work. And our focus in the gallery is on local artists. We are always anxious if there are local artists watching the show and they would like to have their work shown at the gallery or the kiosk. They definitely need to call the airport and ask to talk to Kay Beth, because we are always looking for ways to highlight our local artists. And what better way than to be in a place where millions of people go through every year.
And I know y'all have a website as well.
Yes.
That people can reference.
People can go to the website and see what we're doing and look at what's going on there. And certainly call
JIAarts.com?
.org, I think.
Okay. Well, we'll have to get Kay Beth up here.
Yes. Yes.
Well, Jean, our time is up, and we're going to have you back in the second segment, but I want to thank you for joining us.
Oh, delighted. We get to see pictures in the second segment, right?
Exactly. The second half will have pictures, so don't go away. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Major Samantha Weeks. I get to live my dream every day of being an Air Force fighter pilot and flying the most advanced aircraft in the world. Before I could ever climb into this Thunderbird F-16, I had to prove my flying skills through intense training, hard work, and determination. The road to my goal was long and challenging, but the reward is out of sight. You too can live your dream and accomplish anything when you set your mind to it.
Hello and welcome back to this edition of the Airport News Show. On today's program, we're talking about the Jacksonville International Airport Arts Commission. And I want to welcome back Ms. Jean Ward, who is the chair of the JIA Arts Commission Board. And joining us is Ms. K. Beth Cornelius, who is the program coordinator for the Arts Commission. And we're going to find out a little bit about what that means.
She just takes care of everything and makes sure it all runs well.
And simply put, what else is there to say? Well, welcome back, Jean, and welcome, K. Beth. So glad you could be here. This part of the program, we talked a little bit about the history of the Arts Commission itself and how it was formed and their mission and everything and bringing permanent and rotating art to the airport. So now I want to talk a little bit more about how art gets into the airport. And K. Beth, I know you work closely with the Arts Commission and with the Aviation Authority. So can you briefly explain what your role is as program, or is it program coordinator? Okay.
I'm the program coordinator.
Okay.
So I work with the Arts Commission, which is outside of the Aviation Authority, and basically keep you in the loop of what's happening at the Aviation Authority. I have an office in the administration building, downstairs from you, Debbie.
Right.
Coordinate all of our activities and artists. And
Right, so we have a lot going on at the Haskell Gallery. We have a lot going on this year with the increasing the size of the permanent collection with the new concourses. So keeping all of the contracts running smoothly, the rotating exhibits at the art gallery. It's a fun job.
Now, so when they put out an RFQ or a proposal, request for proposals for these projects, you're the recipient of those multitude of interests from artists, right?
Get all of that information into my office, so I would keep a file of everything that comes in, when it comes in. And then through meetings with you all, and I haven't been through that process yet. I've been on the back end process.
Right.
her office will fill up with all of these things.
I
The
have
proposals
seen
come,
some things.
yes, and they move out in the hall and down the hall towards someone else's office. So.
Exactly.
So I make friends with the mail guy, Chris.
Right, you have to. Important.
You have to. So you take in all those artist interest forms, and some of them include samples.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
all
of
them
do. Yes,
include samples, examples.
And so when we set them up, there's a whole room full of boards, and some of them are actually maquettes, and it's very
extensive.
Can you explain what a maquette is?
It's a small scale rendition of what the final piece would be. So it would be just an example. If you're talking about doing a 35-foot piece, they'll just do something to scale smaller to give people an idea. It's like Jean said, many people on the commission are artists, but also some people aren't necessarily artists, but they're interested in the arts, and all different people, I think, have a different way of, space, relationship,
and visualizing
and that kind of thing. Exactly.
what it's going to look like.
Right. So that's the artist's job to sell their idea.
Okay. Well, we've got a slideshow, and before we get to that, though, I know you just recently went through installation of a project. What is that like? I mean, there's the whole selecting it and getting the interest in and selecting the final artist and getting the final approval from the board. So, what is it like to actually get an installation put up in the airport?
And even before we get to the moment of going into the airport, we have to go through the whole contractual process and get that taken care of. So once that's done, in this instance, we're talking about Cloudscapes, which is a restroom surround in Concourse A. And the artists are from New York, the tile installers were from Miami, so the tile had to be shipped in. The project
She's the coordinator extraordinaire on this project.
And a national scale.
Yeah, it was exciting, but it took place post-security. So we had to go through TSA, which, as you know, is not necessarily, it's not part of the Aviation Authority, it's a separate government organization, and that takes time. And so once we were in, they tried to work as ideally fast as they could. It took about a week, and it was fun. It was very interesting. It was entertaining.
Yes.
We got to know each other really well, and Yeah, it worked out really well, and it was fun, I think, for the airport employees to see what was happening and talk to the artists. And it's also great to see the passengers' reaction, and they love it. They just really, people were just enthralled with what was happening and just excited. And it's a beautiful, beautiful piece. And
because you could actually see it in the stages of installation as they were doing
people
it. So
never get to
be
see normally. I mean,
exactly.
Actually,
and as you know, people get to the airport so early now. They have time that you know, they're wandering around, and you can only read so many magazines. You know, you walk around before you get on the plane. So the art really enhances, and like you say, some people might not enjoy it, but that certainly gives them an opportunity to talk about something. It's a conversation starter, and I think it really it improves your life, having art in your life.
Right. So. Especially since this was around a restroom, you had a regular audience coming through. Even though the restrooms are closed,
audience?
You still have sort of a captive audience because it was being done around the restroom. And but it's beautiful. Now
beautiful.
that you going from the maquette, if you will, the conceptual to the actual finished piece was a lot of fun to watch happen.
Now with the restrooms, there's going to be more to come of different
we have
artists
three
and
more.
three more that will be entirely different.
Right.
So we thought that would be a fun thing to do that part of the restrooms and all. So.
Right, and when we get to that, you can talk a little bit more about it, because there's 2 sets of restrooms on Concourse A, and then 2 sets of restrooms on Concourse C when that opens in November. And so you've got basically 4 different artistic renderings and installations for those 4 sets of restrooms.
Yes.
Okay. Well, so what's been, I know you haven't been with it that long, what's been the most exciting part of being a program coordinator for the Arts
I'm anxious to
Commission?
hear this. Perhaps the installation, do you think?
The most exciting part, it might be the sales out of the Haskell Gallery.
Really?
Because the customers, you know, the artists, they end up with customers from California and from Washington, D.C. and New York that might not otherwise have an opportunity to see their work. So I think for both the customers, the passengers that come through the airport, they're amazed to find art, and they take advantage of it, and they call me and they purchase it. We arrange for it to be shipped to them. And then the artists, they also, you know, they're excited. A couple artists have now, they have galleries in these different areas now that represent them, or otherwise they wouldn't have had that opportunity.
That's
and then
wonderful.
the passengers even, I think I sent you the email a while ago, they don't necessarily buy the art, but they have an experience, an emotional experience where they walk through. The one woman that, I don't know, it reminded of her father
Very
who had just
peaceful
recently been
displays
sick.
that she
and,
really enjoyed, right.
So that's exciting.
That's nice. Well, on that note, let's go ahead and focus on we'll look at some of our permanent art and just give a brief explanation, because there's quite a bit in the airport right now. So if we could go ahead and get here we go. So if you could just explain briefly what we're looking at here.
Okay, this is a mural that was done by Don Martin of St. Augustine.
Okay.
And it's a mural of this whole area, the history of it, the flora and fauna. What's interesting about this is it was done a number of years ago, and it was down in baggage claim. And when the airport, of course that's always an issue with airports, when the airport was redoing, there was no place for it down there anymore. And the creative people at the airport found a place upstairs along the whole rim as you go in and out of the airport. The funniest thing about this is that people have been saying to John Clark, I can't believe it, that's a wonderful new mural.
Yeah.
Nobody noticed it downstairs. Not nobody, but a lot of people didn't notice it downstairs when they're getting their bags, but when it went upstairs, they did, and then he added a continual piece on it. So it's very much a history and a snapshot of looking at the area. And
that's just one segment of a 3-segment piece. Okay, we talked about this earlier. This is Silver Rain.
The idea behind Silver Rain was that it's in a place that something needed to hang that was not going to be heavy and cumbersome looking, but gave a feel of movement. Everything we try to put in the airport that hangs like that, we like from the artistic point of view, to have some movement attached to
Right,
it.
right.
Because this is what the airport is about, is movement and flight. And that's a wonderful piece. That's been there quite a long time,
Yeah, that's
actually,
one
quite
of
a
the-
few years.
yeah.
That's one of the early ones.
That's one of the earlier ones,
Along
right.
with Don Martin's piece as
Yeah.
well.
Now this is located in the moving walkway between the
Right.
two garages, the parking garages.
This is a wonderful local artist who works at Haskell, David Engdahl, and who could resist the idea of airplanes at the airport, hanging down of all different colors, and the whole feeling of flight and movement again in this particular
they
piece.
weave
Now this
in
was
and
a
out.
compromise with the airport, because we had them hanging down and dangling around and moving, and that would not work in a space. And so that's where we work with the airport to make it so it works, it fits the airport's needs and the artistic needs. And that's one of the favorites. People comment on this one a lot.
Right. And here's the etched glass you were talking about.
Yes, by Jim Draper, the wonderful palms that so represent our area etched in that glass, and they're beautiful at night with the light behind them.
Right, and they are beautiful. People can see through them. And this is the Oyas Hoy.
This is Hoyas Hoy by
Nighttime.
wonderful Mexican artist, and it truly represents that we're an international airport and an international city, and his idea when he spoke to us when it was installed with this was this represented multicultures.
Right.
And this is, when you come here, you fly off to those, and the wonderful work Reynolds Smith and Hill did behind with the water.
With the water
I
falling.
think really enhances.
It's beautiful.
Enhances Hoy. The rivers are wonderful. The rivers are done in postage stamps.
Yes,
if you have
get
not
close enough.
get close enough, they're different rivers of the world, and the postage stamps are from that particular area of the world. We are going to put some signage up there because it's not entirely, we want to make sure people know which river is which, and that has been extremely popular. That works better in baggage claim where people, where it is not the whole wall, but people can see the movement all the way down the wall. It's a beautiful piece, but people need to go up to it and look
at these stamps. Exactly. Here's the most recent installation, the two restrooms cloudscapes, the one on the upper.
You want to talk about them a little bit, K-Beth, because you're the expert on these.
Well, they originally were digital photographs that were blown up, and then the glass tile, that tile is actually custom made in Venice, Italy, and when you're up close, you cannot tell what it is, but obviously far away, you can see that they're clouds, and they're beautiful.
Okay, we're running out of time.
Oh,
this is going up, and
this is very exciting.
Gotta Go.
This is about, what, 40 feet high?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
40 feet high.
There's
on both ends of the concourse. One is a man and one is a woman. And it's Gordon Uther from California, from Napa Valley. It's going to be a very exciting, colorful.
That's going to be.
Yes, it's going to be wonderful. And this all happens in November, right?
Yes.
The rest of it all goes in.
Okay, well, we are out of time, so thank you, Jean.
Oh, thank you.
The chair for the JIA Arts Commission, and K-Beth Cornelius. Absolutely, a lot more going on in the art world out at the airport.
That's right.
So thank you once again.
Thanks for having us.
And thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time on the Airport News Show.